Vin Scully was the voice of my childhood. Like basically, he was in our house like every day. And to be sitting in his seat is unbelievable.
You recently partnered with TIAA. Could you talk a little bit about your partnership and what they've done with the College World Series, the softball College World Series?
Yeah, I mean, it's what they're doing across the board. And I think more than anything, when we think about equality, especially gender equality, we've kind of learned and understood, equality, whether it's in sports with Title IX, whether it's in the workplace, but, TIAA's focus, especially in retirement equalities, is really what happens in retirement as well, and how women receive 30% less income in retirement. So, we're working so hard to get to this equal place. But then when we're looking at like the latter half of our years as women, 30% less is significant. And it's honestly ridiculous. So I love that this is a huge cause, it's a huge mission, and it's something that I think for all of us to kind of think about, make sure that we're taking the steps to prevent and educate, whether it's, investments, whether it's, pushing for, within your workplace, what your retirement looks like. But that to me is like the biggest thing.
And with you partnering with TIAA, have you set your plans for retirement?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's funny because you don't talk about it a lot, but it's something I do think about. In fact, as soon as I graduated from Stanford, I think one of the biggest things, even when I wasn't making a whole lot of money as a professional softball player, I had a lot of great financial advice, and it was putting into retirement, especially because you have a lot of the retirement accounts that you can do like before the age of 30, when you have minimal income, and things that you can actually put into that you can't once you get older, that are amazing. So I was lucky to already think about my retirement at age like 23, which is kind of unusual. And then now working for Disney through ESPN, their retirement is awesome, and how they match. So I actually max out my retirement because, I mean, you really never know when that time is going to come. And, sometimes I look forward to it, and I want to make sure that we're set up.
Of course, no doubt about that. And you mentioned working for Disney and ESPN. You covered the softball College World Series recently. I got a chance to check out most of it, and it was a big success when it comes to TV ratings. So how was that experience covering the College World Series?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, Brian, I mean, what's crazy is like, this is my 15th year. So to see that growth, and honestly, like having played in it, 20 years ago, which is kind of mind blowing now. I was actually just with one of my teammates from the World Series today. I haven't seen her in like 10 years. So we were actually just reminiscing about watching it for her now. And she's like, God, I remember when we played, and, all the things. But to see this year in particular, first of all, they add that like third deck of fans, which brought it to 13,000 people, standing room only. It was sold out. You have Oklahoma, playing for their second national championship in 2 years in Oklahoma. So not only did you have sold out fans, but you had fans that really understood every moment, every play. And then of course the ratings. And this has been something that's been consistent, thank goodness. We're finally getting the financial support that comes with it. So it wasn't like, oh, this was a fluke this one year. It's been like 10 years straight where we're outrating the men. And not that, I used to do college baseball. My dad's a college baseball coach. I love college baseball. But I think when we talk about equality, it's just like, okay, like we can be equal. It's not like which one's better, but can we please get the same financial support? Can we have the same facilities? We saw this with obviously NCAA women's basketball last year. We saw it with softball, and the fact that we were playing the same amount of games that the men were, but in half the amount of days. So we're playing until like 2:00 in the morning, and then coming back and playing 4 more games the next day. And we're like, for budget reasons, when we're outrating, the men, like, can we please like let these women like actually have a day, like just a minute to be able to perform. So the NCAA changed it for the first time this year, added 2 more days to give it some length. And I feel like the product really showed up even better because of it.
You talked about how you played in the College World Series when you were at Stanford. So how was the atmosphere back then compared to what it is now?
I mean, it was amazing back then because, everything has grown. So for us, like I love Stanford, but we had 20 people in the stands, usually like it's mom and dad and like maybe a boyfriend, like we didn't have fans. And, the Pac-12, Arizona State, those two, when you play in those stadiums, they could pack in like 2,000 to 3,000. So that was awesome. So when we went to the Women's College World Series, and there were, then it was probably like 6,000. That was amazing. And it was comparative to what it is now in that sense. I remember signing an autograph for the first time in my life. I was kind of like, wait, you want me? No one had ever asked for my autograph, but there were fans. They were real fans there. I never experienced that before. We had posters made, and I mean, it really was the big leagues when you think about what's the pinnacle of our sport right now. And that's what it was then. And it still is to this day. It's just gotten bigger as the sport has grown on every level.
Along with the Softball College World Series and its growth, last year, the softball returned to the summer games after a 13-year hiatus, and the Team USA finished in second place, got the silver medal. So what was your reaction when you found out that softball was returning to the Olympics, especially for you, since you won 2 Olympic medals?
Yeah, actually, I went straight to my employer and said, can we make sure in my contract that I'm allowed to work for NBC in the year 2020? And, obviously this was before everything that happened. And because I knew that if softball was going to return, the last time I played was the last time softball was in the Olympics.
Oh, that's right.
Japan had beaten us for that gold medal. So it still was very much and then ironically, the time that it returns is in Japan, and Japan's number 1, we're number 2. So I'm like, I need to be there and call these games. This needs to be something. And it was awesome. ESPN is not usually always oh yeah, sure, go work for another network. Great. But they understood the importance of this for me. So when it came back, I think my first priority was I need to be there. I need to be part of this. And I was excited for the sport to showcase on that same stage that we were able to, really in what we call the golden years, because when we were in the Olympics, softball was, prime time, and we were able to make significant money because of it. And then it went away. So being able to be in Tokyo last year and be a part of it and cover it and see it, I wish, fans had been there too, just because Japan loves softball. And then ultimately they ended up winning again. But I think it's good for the sport to be as global as possible.
And it looks like it will be back in the Olympics the next time around. And with that, along with the success of the College World Series, where do you see softball heading in the next 10 to 15 years?
I looked at the professional level. I mean, right now we see these athletes like a Jocelyn Alo is a superstar. I mean, my son literally went to baseball practice yesterday with Jocelyn Alo as a home run queen and her face on his shirt as an 8-year-old boy being this is my idol. Jocelyn Alo is who I want to hit like. And I'm just this is so cool. He's met Aaron Judge, he's met baseball players, but he thinks Jocelyn Alo is number 1. And so I think about, okay, she's at this height. And what we see is at 22 years old, you just drop off because the professional level just isn't as seen. ESPN's now signed a contract with Athletes Unlimited. So they actually kick off, I think this week or next week with their league. And it kind of, I'm hoping rolls into now that there's a television deal. So we need to be able to watch these women. So that's where I see the biggest growth. And Athletes Unlimited does it very uniquely. They have a draft every week. And so it's almost whoever, and it's a video game point system. So you get points based on your personal performance and your team performance. And then that goes into where you, if you're a captain the next week, and then you're basically go back to 3rd grade and you're picking teams, who gets picked last. But it's accountability. Man, you didn't show up last week, you're getting picked last. And you're not going to get paid as much based on your performance. And so it's a different way of doing things, which I think we've needed. And so my goal is for these women to really be able to get paid and make a living in their prime years. So now that there's NIL in college, we're seeing college softball players get paid, but ultimately, I peaked at probably age 30, to be honest. So I needed that extra 10 years to be able to play, to see the best of our sport. And I want more women to have not only the opportunity to play, but then actually make some significant money while doing it.
Yeah, hopefully that comes into play sooner than later. And along with what you're going on with softball, you actually became a TV analyst for the Los Angeles Dodgers. How did all that come about, and how was that experience?
Brian, like, it has been a dream. I mean, I grew up in Ventura County and outside of LA. The Dodgers, Vin Scully was the voice of my childhood. Like, basically, he was in our house like every day. And to be sitting in his seat is unbelievable. And not like that, I'm not saying, but like Vin Scully would call the games, and now instead of Vin Scully, it's Joe Davis and myself, or Joe Davis and Earl, whoever is calling these games. And it's been not only amazing to be able to do that, but then you're like on the plane with the team, you're on the bus with the team, you're part of the team. And, you're always a fan of the game, right? I mean, that's why we all got involved in sports, because at some point we were a fan of a team or a fan of a sport. And for me, it was the Dodgers. So to now have it come full circle, where like my career is now in covering a team that I just was so enamored by as a child, but then to also do it like from a professional standpoint too, and get to know the other teams that they're playing, and to be that up close and personal has been really awesome.
And the Dodgers have been one of the top teams in the MLB.
That helps. You know what, Brian? Yeah. That helps for sure.
Of course.
I've never had a woman, call any games. And, I'm hoping we'll kind of get through that, where, because, the Rockies have already knocked down that door. The Mariners have knocked down that door. The Cubs have now done it with Beth Mullins in the booth. So like, I'm hoping, it's not a thing, but like the fact that for the last, 80 years, it's always been men. It's nice to have a female voice too.
So when it comes to the Dodgers for this season, what do you think? What do you think it takes for them to win their second World Series in 3 years?
Pitching. I mean, struggle bus right now. I mean, Walker Buehler just went on the IL 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm a little worried it could be longer. When you hear forearm strain, you kind of start to like, oh no, not Tommy John. Which his is coming back like that. It's not that, but you just never know. He's already had Tommy John surgery, actually, coming out of Vanderbilt. But Clayton Kershaw just came off the IL and is now back. Gave up a few runs in his last start. And then, we all know with Trevor Bauer and the fact that he will not be returning, most likely, with the Dodgers, the amount of money they spent on him to be a starting pitcher. So that's my biggest concern, is this team is ridiculously talented. They have been, and then they went and got Freddie Freeman this year. Like, can we just get like any better? But ultimately, like, that starting pitching is something I'm really worried about right now, especially with injuries.
Yeah, the Freddie Freeman addition was interesting. With me being based in Atlanta and a Braves fan, a lot of Braves fans weren't happy with that. But
I was surprised, honestly. Like, sorry, talk about this forever. I do feel like Matt Olson. It'll be interesting, Brian, like in 5 years from now, how we look at this. Because right now, Freddie Freeman is still at his height and he's killing it and doing really well. I do think Matt Olson might end up being a possibly better deal for what they would have paid for Freddie at the back end of his career. So when we see those later years and we see Matt Olson still hopefully like producing and doing what he can do for a lot less money, like it might make Alex Anthopoulos look a lot smarter than maybe he does right now. I don't know.
Right. And, you've obviously covered the MLB for ESPN. When it comes to the entire landscape of this season, who do you think has the best chance to win the World Series? There's the Dodgers, defending champions, the Braves. They've won 12 straight. There's the Yankees, who have the best record in baseball. The Mets are right behind them. So who do you think has the best chance to win it all this year?
That's so hard because, I mean, I only say this because there's no way. Although I picked the Braves, ironically, when we did our preseason votes, I picked the Braves leading in the last year, not because like I really knew anything, but I really liked that team. Yeah. But then you look over the course of the season and the Braves and like the fact where they were in the division, how they were barely over 500, all the things, right? So then that makes me think like it's not maybe the team like right now. I would say Yankees. The Yankees are the best team in baseball, period. I know the Mets have been amazing too, but the Yankees have just been unbelievable. So I almost think like, what about a team like the Red Sox, right? Everyone's kind of counting them out. They really struggled. They had a losing streak. Everyone's like, man, they're awful, especially Boston fans. But here they're going now. Like they're starting to get rolling. You start to kind of see. And Alex Cora managing in the postseason, I don't think there's anybody better. So it's really just like you get in October, clean slate. Like, doesn't matter what you did before that, right? Just get into October. And that's what the Braves did last year. Just give them a chance, get them in there and see what they can do with it. And so to answer your question, like if it's today, yeah, Yankees, Mets is like your World Series 2 teams, if you're looking at the 2 best. But I want to almost be sneaky in like a team like the Red Sox. If they can get in, like, look out.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting second half of this 2022 season. And the last question for me before I let you go is, you've obviously had a successful broadcasting career, but what are some of the goals you have for your career moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think for me, I love covering women. Obviously getting to do the College World Series, you're getting me coming right off of that. And as much as I love Major League Baseball, I always love that. I really want to get back into telling the stories of all these women that I feel like we don't know enough of. Something that I got to do with the Olympics that I think the Olympics does a great job of is it really showcases women, I think, more than any other sporting event. The women are as big, or if not bigger stars than the men. It's like one of the only like sporting events where you really see that. And I think it's because of the nature of the Olympic Games. Because it's that heartwarming, like you get moms, you get, all the different things that go into it. So that's something that I want to pay for the opportunities that I had. And I feel like with what I can do in my career, part of paying that forward is being able to really showcase more women and figure out a way to elevate, which you're seeing more of, but not enough of still. So I really want to be a part of that change and that movement going forward of highlighting all our kick-ass women, really.
Of course. Yeah, I would love to see that as well. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Congratulations on everything and continued success to you.